G'day, you're listening to the Virtual Staff Room, and this is episode 5. Look at the board. A couple of weeks ago, we did an episode on interactive whiteboards with John Pearce, Mel Lee and Margot Metcalf. And I got a lot of good feedback on that episode. A lot of people emailed and wrote and said that they were really interested in this whole notion of interactive whiteboards. And we talked specifically there about the sort of strategies you might look at if you were looking to implement interactive whiteboards in a school. This week we're talking to two other people on the topic of interactive whiteboards, and we're looking at a slightly different angle. We're looking at some of the newer interactive whiteboard technologies that are coming out, things that are on the horizon, and what sort of impact they might have on the classrooms of tomorrow. And we'll also be exploring just some other ideas about interactive whiteboards, where they fit into the classroom, some different strategies and philosophies on how they might suit a classroom and how teachers might use them, and just a few other thoughts that we sort of gathered together on this idea. I'm joined this week by two wonderful teachers, Bryn Jones from Fremantle in WA and Paul McMahon, who's a teacher who's currently working in Hong Kong. And I thought these guys had some really interesting insights into the whole interactive whiteboard technology area. Well, I'm sitting here at the moment talking across the waters to Paul McMahon in Hong Kong. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Bryn.
And I've also got Bryn Jones, who's in Perth, or actually Fremantle, sorry, I'll correct myself there, Bryn. You're a Fremantle boy through and through.
That's right. Hi, Paul. Hi, Chris. Good to catch up.
And we're getting together today just to talk about interactive whiteboards. Now, I know we spoke about this recently, and there was a lot of positive feedback about the whiteboards, so I thought I'd invite in Bryn and Paul, who are both people with a lot of expertise in this area, just to expand on the conversation and just bring in some other points of view. So, Bryn, I might throw it open to you first. I'll just get you to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and let you start off with your thoughts.
Okay. I work with teachers doing online professional development primarily, and through a company called ICTPD.net, and also work as a representative for Atomic Learning in Australia, New Zealand and Singapore. So I do tend to get around to a lot of trade shows and school systems for meetings and so on, and see a little bit of the different way people use things. What's been interesting for me is going to BET, the British Educational Technology Trade Show, which is held in London in January every year. It's the oldest and biggest education trade show in the world. And I've been there for the last 3 years, and so seeing the whiteboard, it's where they tend to release their new technology and showcase upcoming things. And I've always been fascinated by this sort of dichotomy between people who see the whiteboard as a retrogressive step to keep the teacher at the centre of the classroom, and those who see it as a more student-centred collaborative tool. And that's the kind of idea I'd like to sort of pursue in this discussion. Particularly the new technologies that are coming out, which allow you to use the whiteboard without standing at the front of the room, which seems to be a kind of schizophrenic approach to the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear a bit more about that, and I totally hear what you're saying about this notion of, on one hand, we're saying student-centred learning, put the students in the middle of the learning process, and on the other hand, we're putting in whiteboards that bring the teacher back to the front of the classroom again. So I'd be interested to pursue that. Paul, you want to tell us who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your take on the whole whiteboard thing?
Love to, Chris. Thanks very much for the introduction and the opportunity. I took off over to Hong Kong a while ago after having had 11 years at a school that Bryn's very, very familiar with in Perth, Western Australia, and we were doing a one-to-one laptop program there at the school, and that's All Saints College in Perth, and had a terrific time there, really enjoyed it, but decided after running the program for some time that it's worth seeing some of the other parts of the world and seeing what goes on over there. So I found myself teaching in international college in Hong Kong, but through one thing or another I've now got out of that and got into a situation where I've been involved in working with teachers here in Hong Kong. We set up a little bit of a recruitment agency mainly aimed at trying to support supply teachers into supply relief teachers into Hong Kong schools, and one of the main international school systems over here, the English Schools Foundation, is a completely whiteboard-oriented environment. There is an interactive whiteboard in every single school there, and they operate 16 schools in the Hong Kong region, and quite a few of the international schools are also 100% whiteboard. So there's a huge penetration here. So we realised that working with teachers, we had to train them on an interactive whiteboard. So we started trying to source one. Cut a long story short, we now are the the Hong Kong distributor for a China-based interactive whiteboard, and we've been doing a lot of work in actually working with the whiteboards, trying to find out what's out there, taking on board the whole concept of I think what Mel Lee calls a digital hub, where the whiteboard is just a centerpiece of a whole series of things that you can put into a classroom, and we've very much embraced that idea. So we've launched a company, and we've been working a little bit with the international schools here, and just now breaking into the local Hong Kong market as well. That's the local schools here. Very, very different environment. I'm learning every day and absolutely loving it.
That's great. Well, in the red corner we have the guy who's really pro the whiteboards. In the blue corner we have the other guy who's going to try and say that the technology is talking itself out of being itself. So this should be an interesting discussion. Bryn, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Okay, look, I'm not against whiteboards. I've seen teachers use them in fantastic ways, and they absolutely love them. But what I found interesting is the last few shows I've been to, the big thing they're promoting is a tablet that you can sit down at the desk anywhere in the room and use the tablet to control the screen. And there seem to be two kinds of tablets: a cheaper one which doesn't have any image on it, so you have to look at the board while sitting in the room whilst writing with a stylus, if you can imagine that.
Yep.
And you control the board from anywhere. So that's kind of leaning towards a much more collaborative, student-centered approach. But then the question arises, why have I got a whiteboard? You know, because really I could do that with a data projector and a normal screen. And then there's a more elaborate type of panel which actually has the screen displayed on it, which is a touch-sensitive panel. So and they're quite expensive. So you see the screen, control the screen with a stylus, and everything that you do comes up on the board. Now again, you know, we're not actually using the interactive features built into the board. So it seems the companies are trying to hedge their bets and have it both ways, but in some ways they may be saying, well, you don't actually need an interactive whiteboard. There's other technologies that do the job.
Right, so just if I can just clarify in my own head then, you're saying that with a slate and a stylus, a student or a teacher can be sitting anywhere in the classroom, and through a wireless connection this slate can talk to a unit somewhere which projects the image onto the board, and you can interact with the board from anywhere in the room.
Yeah, and Promethean and Smart both market a thing like that.
Yep.
A more sophisticated version is I've seen in Singapore, where they have a project to put long-term to give a tablet computer to every student in Singapore. They've got about 5,000 deployed. And I spent a morning with the people in the project having a look at what they're doing. They've got some very good software writers attached to the project too. So they have a projector which links up wirelessly to, or the network links everybody up wirelessly, connected to a projector, so that any student can take control of the board, or any group of students can take control of the board. So you've got a touch-sensitive interface on the tablet, no interactive whiteboard, but all the same sorts of features. So the only thing that seems to leave for the interactive whiteboard to do is if you actually want to have a group of students standing at the front of the room using a big space, or fat fingers or something. Yeah.
Can I just jump in there, Chris, for a minute, just
sure.
to add my take on this? Like, as I said, we're just breaking into the local Hong Kong market here, and for those who know Hong Kong, you sort of almost live in a two-tiered society here. There's an expat and a very rich Chinese area where a lot of people drive around in Porsches and BMWs and go to rich international schools and do quite well. And then there's another group of people that are at a very, very basic sort of level of education. Very large class sizes, still very traditional education. If you actually look in there, the paradigm in those schools is one teacher walking up and down with a headset, which is actually a wireless microphone, and they're broadcasting out to the students who are sitting there jotting down things in notebooks. That's what it looks like most of the day. Now, these schools don't have a lot of money, so coming back to those sort of ideas, I can understand that international schools and very rich schools in places like Singapore probably can afford to roll out a tablet PC to every child. But having come from an environment, again, a great environment in Perth, where we had the money to be able to put a laptop computer in front of every student, and the ability to do all the resourcing and work with teachers, and free them to do some effective professional development that Bryn assisted with. That's all well and good when you come from that environment. But the thing that we're facing, particularly here in Hong Kong, and I'm sure it's similar in lots and lots of places around the school where they're a little bit cash strapped, is what you've got a situation where there is limited funds. There is also a teacher body that aren't particularly interested in spending all their time doing a lot of professional development and bits and pieces like that in their own spare time. There is one thing that you can put in front of a class full of kids that completely changes things without teachers having to do a lot, and that's an interactive whiteboard. You hang one of these on the wall. I mean, teachers are so comfortable with the fact that they can walk up and get into it. Now, in the first instance, that's what happens. They start using it pretty much as an interactive, just as a whiteboard, basically. But then you've got all these other things that can come from it. Once they start realising the kids want these pens as well, and they want to walk up the front and start using it. And I see these other handheld devices that Bryn talks about as being another later progression. Then what you do is you hand the kid one of those things, and what you've got is a teacher up the front being able to show stuff, but every other kid in the classroom potentially also being able to show something up the front, to talk, to share with the group, to bring a much richer experience. I'm quite enthusiastic about the way that's being used.
Yeah, that's certainly the way that I've seen Smart and Promethean promote the Slate product. Is it's an add-on to their existing system, not a replacement for it. But what you're saying, Bryn, is that potentially it could actually be a replacement for it.
Yeah, I think so. And the Singapore project is government schools, not private schools. It's the plan is every child in Singapore, and they're getting the tablets down to maybe $700-800, and they're pretty nice tablets. So yeah, I'm not opposed to whiteboards. I think that they're great and people use them in interesting ways. But I do find it's a difficult future for the companies when they're trying to, on the one hand, promote the teacher-centeredness of them and the student-centeredness of them with different technologies, and plus other technologies coming out, which perhaps we'll move on to soon, which we don't need a board at all, which still give you an interactive whiteboard. But it's a projected interactive whiteboard. Which is quite
now, you're talking about those things where they clip onto the side of a standard whiteboard as an e-beam or something? Is that the one I've heard of?
Well, the Mimeo is probably the best known of those.
Mimeo,
but
yeah.
More interesting, I think, is the Onfinity, which I've posted a link to. The Onfinity is not a lot bigger than a pocket hard drive, and it will stand on a normal camera tripod. It sits next to the projector, and it actually projects an interactive grid onto a wall, so it can actually be as big as you like. I think it's just 7 meters diagonal. Costs about $800, and simply sits by the side of the projector, so that then you use a metal stick to control the surface. So there's nothing on the surface at all. It's quite interesting. I think it's an infrared grid.
Wow.
It is an infrared grid. Can I give a plug? They're actually out of Hong Kong. so I've had the people from the group called Onfinity in to demonstrate it here, and I've just been amazed. It is fantastic. We also distribute the product now, so it's interesting. It is a fantastic product. And Bryn, I don't know whether you realise, but there's two ways in which you can interact with it. One of them is the wireless wand, but they also, and the wireless wand will work if you're using something like just a normal screen. You can project onto a screen and use the wireless wand. But the other way of doing it is your standard pen as well, which they market, and you can use a hard surface and use the pen as you would an interactive whiteboard pen.
Yeah. And now, I mean, there was a rumour, I don't know if this is confidential information, but if you've met the manufacturers, but the obvious next step would be to put this device inside the data projector, so that in one small box for $2,000 you've got the lot.
Yes, yeah, we've discussed that. Yeah.
That's the thing to me as a teacher that really I'm still seeing is the issue, is the cost of installing these things fully fledged in the classroom, where you mount the thing on the ceiling and you mount the board and you run all the wires. It can really add up. I'm looking at, by the time you add the board, the projector, and all the wiring, it's $5,000.
Oh, it's 6,000. They tend to say here for a decent setup, for a robust, good, tidy
And that puts the board in one room, and that's probably great in the primary or elementary classroom. But in the secondary classroom, where you typically have schools with a lot more rooms, I'm just finding it a real pain in the neck, to be honest, to have to set up these boards and move them around because we're not fixing them because there's just too many rooms.
Can I jump in again there?
Please.
Like, again, I think we've got to go back to what is it that we're actually trying to achieve. I mean, if we're really, really looking at making a difference for kids and getting kids to use technology and also see teachers using technology, this, you're talking about, 5,000 if you talk about your money. The one thing about being in Hong Kong is we're across all sorts of different currencies here. But at the end of the day, yes, you put that combination in and you are talking about 5,000. Now, I would say, the cost of, in Australia, maybe 3-4 desktop computers? Something like that, around there, maybe 5.
They're getting pretty cheap now.
They're the price of desktops.
Under 1,000 now in some cases.
Yeah, okay, under 1,000.
Right.
So we're talking about 5 desktops. Now, if you put 5 desktops into the classroom, and I can speak from experience because I've put 5 desktops and 3 and 4 desktops into the classroom, what I find is it does not change what happens in the classroom. A lot of these desktops are used in ways in which I just find them pedagogically unsound, to be honest. I find that they get used pretty much as the reward for the children who finish early. And often the reward is they can go and play a maths game on the computer. Now that's not...
Don't even get me started.
No, that is not changing what happens in a classroom. But for the same amount of money, you put a central thing in that actually becomes a focus point for your classroom. It is something where not only can you just, sort of write on it, but you can start interacting with this amazing stuff that's coming out on the web. There are all sorts of Web 2.0 things on there. I mean, one of the Australian teachers recently posted on the web the podcast that these children did. Now, you can start to play the podcast because typically in your 5,000 you've hooked it up to a pair of reasonable speakers in the classroom as well. So you can listen to the kids' podcasts that they've all made of the human biology textbook and sort of look at the screens come up and do all sorts of things and really do those sorts of things that change what happens in a classroom. And I would say this has more potential to change what happens in a classroom than anything else I've seen to date.
Fair point. Yep, fair point. No, I was just saying that the inconvenience from the high school teacher's point of view is the fact that they're not in every room, and therefore, certainly until that happens, it's difficult to achieve that critical mass.
Yes, I agree. That is a real problem in the secondary area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that most people, if had any experience with whiteboards, would suggest that moving them around doesn't really achieve very much. It's really got to be one in every room over a certain period of time. I work with a school where we put 5 fixed boards in rooms and then 1 mobile one in the primary area. And within a week, the teachers came back saying we want 1 each. And what happens is the kids start using the board and they start prodding their fingers at it. The board moves a little bit. You lose the connection with the accuracy. The board's not rigid, so within days they literally said, "Well, we don't want this. We want a real one on the wall in each room." And I think that's pretty much everybody's experience.
Yeah.
Can I come in with a Hong Kong example here? A great example of that. As I said, what's happened is there's a huge penetration in the international schools here of one particular vendor. Let's get into naming vendors. It's actually Active Board. There's pretty much 100% Active Board in the international schools here, and Active Board have been very strongly marketed and done very well in the international environment here. But as far as the local school scene is concerned, there is a very, very low penetration. There's probably 20 boards in total in Hong Kong in the local schools. There are lots of computers, but there aren't interactive whiteboards. Now, at the moment, I'm talking to the what's called the EMB, the Education and Manpower Bureau of Hong Kong, about looking at putting boards in, looking at working with their teachers, looking at doing things. But I'm up against the fact that what actually happened was a few years ago, in 2003, they released a tender, and they said, "Okay, well, look, we're particularly interested in evaluating these interactive whiteboards." Now, it's a little bit like your your Windows versus Mac debate. The two main players are Active Studio, well, Active Board and Smartboard. So Smart said, we're not going to lose this. We are going to completely cut our costs to win this tender. So for 3,000 Hong Kong, so we're talking about less than $500 a board, they actually shipped all the boards into the EMB very, very cheaply. It didn't even cover the costs of shipping them from Canada. But basically they just said, we want this market. So they threw money at it to actually get in there. And again, what happened is all these boards have now done exactly what Bryn said. They have become specialist boards in certain rooms that are dragged out on certain days when it's great to show the parents or a visiting guest or whatever. And I've actually walked around these rooms and I watch them. They're covered in plastic most of the time. There's a great plastic cover on them, and they're on a set of rollers, and they're dragged in front of the projector for the time that you need them. And I just can't imagine these are used in any way, shape or form at all.
I'm laughing, Paul, because it's 10 o'clock here in Canada and I've just gotten in from parent-teacher night. And what did we have set up in the foyer to impress all the parents as they came in? The interactive whiteboard.
You've got it. That's exactly right. And what I've said to these people is, look, I'm not interested in selling you a board. I'm not interested in selling you 3 boards. I am not going to talk to you about doing anything or coming in and assisting your teachers until you start talking about institutional change in your classrooms, about setting up learning communities that are going to do things differently, that are going to embrace the board and do good things and try to change what happens in your classrooms. And for that, you need boards in rooms, and you need them in multiple rooms so that you can get the critical mass to change. And Bryn will know exactly about the experience of All Saints when we did a pilot program of using laptops. We started with our kids, and we got some Year 10s and Year 11s to have one-to-one laptops around there. And a lot of the teachers were hesitant about the whole thing, and the kids are only playing games on them and they're wasting their time and they're doing this, and they gave a million reasons for why this was a bad idea. And then, horror of all horrors, we said, look, we're going all the way from Year 5 right through to Year 12, one-to-one laptop. And they were mortified. But now there is an enormous number of teachers that have turned around and they're still angry at me about one thing, the fact that they can't choose any other school now because they cannot be in a school that doesn't use one-to-one laptops because they believe it is the right way to learn. So they've gone from being upset at me by causing a different paradigm shift to now saying this is it, this is what kids should be doing, this is the way it should be in the future.
Well, it's interesting too, if you commit a huge amount of time to developing whiteboard resources using a particular brand of whiteboard, and that's again a difficulty if you want to move to a different school. And
yeah, true.
Something I'd be interested to know about is how many of the people that use, say, smart boards and active boards, how many actually use the proprietary authoring software that comes with them, or what proportion of people just use them to use generic whiteboard resources. Because
when you say generic whiteboard resources, Bryn, what do you mean? Because I would have assumed that. I'll use Smart as the example. I would have presumed if you used a Smart board, you'd develop most of your resources in Smart Notebook.
Or just the things that Ideal Resources sell, they're just flash-based learning games which you drive onto the board and control with your finger.
Learning object style things. I hadn't thought about that scenario that Bryn just mentioned where, you could be a teacher working in a school for 3 or 4 years and developing a whole swag of resources for a particular brand of board, and then you change schools and find that they're using a different brand of board.
Yeah, well, it's a major issue, yeah.
I'm particularly interested in this whole digital learning object scenario, where basically, as long as things can be put into a compliant format, and one of the most common formats out there is the SCORM format. Yeah. If you can get your resources into that format, which, like, for example, the Easy Teach, you use a third-party app to make sure that all of your Easy Teach flip charts are now SCORM compliant. Yeah. Now, I don't know about Active Studio or Smart Notes, or Active Primary for that matter, but I believe that you might be able to get a third-party piece of software and make those SCORM compliant as well. Yeah. You throw them all into some digital learning object repository or learning content management system, whatever the jargon is, and you can basically store those resources, you can put them on a server somewhere, and you can move them to wherever you like.
Yeah, just down another track, I think an interesting thing about the whiteboards is that until recently, all of smart boards were made in Canada and all of active boards were made in the UK. So Promethean has just moved some of its manufacture to China, and I think Smartboard maybe still entirely in Canada. So
yeah, I think
you can imagine there's got to be
Calgary.
There's got to be a fair bit of fat in the price, you would think, wouldn't you? And potentially there's a potential for the price to come down very significantly in the future, you would think.
I would imagine it's like all economies of scale, wouldn't it be, that the more units you ship, the lower the price is going to drop?
Let me give you a bit of a... I can tell you, I'm on the scene there, you know, because I'm really close to that at the moment, because the company we partner with are just over the border. I'm sitting in an office at the moment, which is probably about 20 kilometres from the China border.
Right.
And over the border, our nearest zone, there's a special economic zone over there. It's called Shenzhen, and there's a big manufacturing heart there. And what's happened is that this manufacturer that we're dealing with has been in business on interactive whiteboards since 2000. They have the Ministry of Education contract right throughout China, and you know they're really established and they make quite a good product. What has happened recently, and I believe it happened in January of this year, was that that Active Studio, that Promethean from the UK moved their manufacturing plant into China for that reason that you're talking about, trying to be competitive, because they were, you know, sort of looking at the price and sort of saying, well, you know, I don't know whether we're going to be able to continue to push them out at this price. Now, I believe that the boards, the Promethean boards for everywhere bar the UK are now manufactured over the border here, also in Shenzhen. In fact, the factory they set up is about within a kilometre of the factory that we actually deal with this other mob. Now, I don't know, I've heard that Smart is very committed to stay in Canada and keep shipping their boards from Canada, but to be very aggressive about price point and all that sort of thing. So that's the way that they're moving forward. The thing is, though, with the boards, you know, we've got our board at the moment to a price point that's probably about 60% of what an Active Studio is, but you know, at the end of the day, an Active board is. At the end of the day, you kind of go up there and you look at this company that we're dealing with, and they're not a sweatshop. Sure, they basically have a lot of people in a room, and they've, you know, I've toured through the plant and looked at them and worked with them, and I don't want to screw down the price anymore because China doesn't need to set up more sweatshops now to make Active boards, as well as, you know, socks and t-shirts and all that sort of thing, and there's a bit of an ethical concern here as well.
But is it not an economy of scale issue? I mean, I'm assuming that's what we're seeing at the moment with projectors. The cost of projectors has just come way down over the last 24 months.
You know why?
No, why?
Because a lot of the manufacturers have actually moved their shipping from Japan, or their production houses from Japan and Taiwan, over to China. So it's about cheap labour still.
Right.
That's the way it works. So, you know, the projector that we're partnering with, we've just been through that. I thought it was a Japanese projector, so I've been wanting to meet with the Japanese representative, but he's told me, look, you know, he'll meet next time he's down setting up his plant in China, because he's got to go into China to make it more cost effective. So that's what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, you're correct. What Promethean are doing is they're maintaining production for the UK in Lancashire, and the rest of the world is being serviced from China over time.
Wow. China's really the powerhouse, isn't it?
It's just amazing.
Yeah, and then when you look at, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the PC Locks laptop trolleys.
Yep.
I meet them quite a lot of times at trade exhibitions. They've moved their manufacture to China, and they said after a bit of looking around, they found a manufacturer that works to a quality standard that you cannot get in Australia. So it's not just a matter of being cheaper. This place was completely robot controlled, laser designed, and they just sent one trolley over, and they converted the trolley into three-dimensional drawings using laser beams, set up the jigs to build it, and then came back and told them where it was superior to the model that they'd sent over.
Wow.
It's unbelievable, Chris. It's you that sent that Monday morning staff meeting video that gave some figures about China, and I was astounded. And you can see just exactly the way it's growing. You know, what was the statement in there? Something like China has more honours graduates than America has students. Yeah. You know, it's just amazing.
Paul, I always like the little thing. I say to people, you know, we talk about China having a population of 1 and a bit billion. Well, the bit is the population of the US.
Unbelievable. What's going on over there?
Yeah. Have you read The World is Flat? I mean, that goes.
No, it's on my list of things to read. No, I'm definitely on my list of things.
absolutely incredible, the detail that's in there. But the strong point he makes is that China and India don't want our crap jobs forever. They want our good jobs too.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
China's building a university every week.
What?
Wow.
And the cleanest, most energy efficient, sustainable city in the world is actually being built in China.
Wow. Didn't know that.
Well, we could get onto all sorts of things there, but it kind of might be off track of the whiteboards.
Yeah. Just coming back to the whiteboard thing, Bryn, you were talking about, well, maybe you weren't talking about, but it's a question in my head. What are their options in terms of a small portable whiteboard solution? You were talking about little units that project themselves onto walls and stuff. Is there an easy solution to a really, really portable whiteboard solution?
Well, if you click on the Infinity link that I put into the chat, and you'll see it literally is the size of the old packet of cigarettes, which we don't have anymore, but it's literally that sort of size. It's a digital camera, but it'll be bigger, and you just plugs into your projector, or plugs into the laptop.
Okay, so I'm looking at that little picture at the moment on the homepage there, and It's got just a little box that seems to be projecting an image. It's got a slate and it's got a laptop.
The little bit to the left of the slate is the
projector unit.
Is the projector unit. The wall has got nothing on it. The wall is just a wall.
Right. Now, but that wall's not going to be actually interactive, though, is it? You can't walk up to that wall and tap it and touch it?
Yeah, with the pen. So if you click on the second one down, I think we're looking at something different. Click on the portable interactive whiteboard in the centre there. See the three things at the top of the page?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, click on that portable interactive whiteboard.
I see, yeah, right, okay.
Okay, so he's standing there with the wand, which gets you away from the screen. You can also use a pen for close-up work. So the little picture on the right there, that's the whole kit.
Right.
The pen, the tripod, and the stick.
Right.
And that's about $800.
Wow. That's not bad.
And it seems obvious to me that you would, next generation, you put that inside the data projector.
Yeah.
The whole lot, it costs $1,500, $2,000, and
yeah.
Big test.
Hey, Paul, what's the status of things on touchscreen plasma?
Good question. Somebody sent me something a while ago on that, and I was very interested to see it and to look at it. It was at a conference in the US when somebody was using one, and very impressive looking machines. But look, I think it's going to be. Look, it's very difficult to predict these things, but from what I'm reading, what I'm hearing, and every bit of information I can get my hands on, it seems like it's going to be quite a few years before we're down the road of actually using a touch screen rather than one of these interactive boards.
Right.
I think it's, it's still very expensive technology.
Yeah.
Even here in Hong Kong, where things are just so incredibly cheap, it's still your LCD screens are just still very expensive. Comparable to other things out there, comparable to a projector. As you said before, you can pick up a projector here in Hong Kong for about 4,000 Hong Kong. So divide that by 6. They're very, very cheap. But you can't pick up a good LCD screen that's a decent size that you'd want to put in front of a classroom for less than 20 or 30,000.
Yeah, true. No,
I think it's smart.
The thing that you always hear people say when they first start using the whiteboards is the shadow problem. They're getting in their way of their own shadow. And I did see some rear projection boards at the Smart Conference in Ontario a couple of weeks ago, and they were kind of neat. But I just wondered if there was ever sort of an idea about merging the plasma technology with interactive technology, so you could just essentially have a big 60-inch plasma screen on the wall.
Oh, look, it's going to come, Chris. There's no doubt about it. It's just a price point. I think schools, we get back to what we were talking about earlier. Schools are just very, very price sensitive, aren't they? They just don't have money to burn, and I can't see that happening in the near future. I mean, Bryn talks about Singapore. I saw somebody on a list the other day saying I think the Singapore government's got a project to air condition the whole of the country. And you could almost believe it, because Singapore is a very small country and it's very, very well off. But that is not going to happen here in Hong Kong, and I can't see that happening I can't see the price of things dropping where every classroom is going to have a plasma screen in Australia inside the next 10 years. I just don't believe that's going to happen. But projecting technology is affordable. I believe that interactive whiteboard technology is affordable. And computers are getting affordable. So all you really need is one desktop computer, one good projector, one interactive whiteboard, and you have your potential class of 30 children all being able to use this technology and change what happens in a classroom.
Yeah.
If you have a look in the chat, I've just posted a link. Smart do make an overlay which can be stuck onto an existing screen, as you say. The problem is the screen is about $15,000 to $30. But the technology's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to a seminar here a year or so ago and with the inventor of the smartboard, and it was very interesting. He was suggesting the next generation that they're working on, which may already be available, has 2 cameras in the corner. So the board can be anything. 2 cameras mounted, if you can imagine the 2 top corners pointing diagonally across the board, and the 2 cameras detect where the pen is. So that could be used on a big screen or on a projected screen or any kind of screen. So
wow, there's a whole lot of interesting stuff out there, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think that's why it's difficult for schools making decisions, to be honest. I mean, you don't know how far away this technology is. You don't know how expensive it's going to be. And you're right, the Wisdom, that's huge at the moment in England.
I've just put a link up there. That's what Bryn's reacting to. And I was just going to say, I don't know whether, you say that it's hard for schools to make a decision, but I would say, and you're going to say, well, look, you can derive an income out of selling interactive whiteboards, so you're a bit biased, and maybe I am, but I can turn around and I can say to you that I believe that if you put an interactive whiteboard and you put that one computer and that projector in there, I'd say for the next 5 years you've got something in there that is not going to be technology that is going to completely and utterly date itself overnight. It's going to be good technology because it just suits what a teacher does. They can bring themselves up to the front to give the kids a bit of a heads up and let me just explain this little bit about this human biology class I'm doing, or let me just show you this little point from history, or let me do what, they can stand in front of it and they can tap it and they can do it. Or the children can get up there, they can use a PowerPoint presentation, or they can use one of these interactive things that they get from the web, or they can use whatever they like. So this technology, I think, for an investment, I think it is good investment dollars. I think you get in there, you get that sort of thing, and then you start adding these other things to it. And as I said, the link that I put there was to the Wisdom voting devices, and as Bryn says, they're huge in England. They're incredibly expensive. Is that like the egg things that Promethean have? I don't know. Well, no, active vote. Yeah, active vote they call it there. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Similar
and basically, just for those who don't know, what this is basically another tool that hooks onto your computer. And again, I quoted Mel Lee before in his comment of a digital hub. And the computer and the interactive whiteboard just becomes a hub for showing lots of different things. And this is one of them. You basically put a little USB controller into the side of your computer, which is a receiving station, and then you give your 30 children potentially a handheld voting device which can vote for A to D, or it could potentially also, with the Wisdom, you can use it like a mobile phone and put a text input and answer questions, and then the teacher can just basically put something up on the screen. Okay, after I've just been speaking to you, telling you all about everything I know about geography and where certain places are in China. Okay, now is Guangzhou in northern, southern, or central, or whatever China? So you give them, an A to D question, and you get every kid who can vote straight away, and you can see the results straight up in front of you.
Who wants to be a millionaire? It's just like ask the audience, yeah.
Well, pretty hard to fall asleep in that environment because the kids are there, they're interacting, they're seeing the results displayed straight away. It's not a bad way to go, really.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. And again, it's an interesting technology, and it can be used at opposite ends of the spectrum. The teacher could just have endless multiple choice quizzes on the board, automatically marked for the kids, or the teacher can stop every 30 seconds to make sure that everybody in the class is following and they're not just teaching to the middle.
Isn't it fantastic that you can do that? You can involve every kid straight away. I'm really excited about them. I reckon they're fantastic.
Yeah, I've seen the ActiVote things in action. We've used them a couple of times at conferences, and they're very engaging.
You're one ahead of me. I haven't seen them in action yet. I was very keen to get hold of one.
And not only that, I saw them in action embedded into, there's a little plug-in engine thing that I've seen used that plugs into PowerPoint, and so you can actually embed the voting thing into a PowerPoint slide, and so you're showing the presentation or whatever, and you pull up this particular slide with a vote on it, and as they hit their active egg things, the vote actually appears on the PowerPoint.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I thought
we had a lot of fun with, the first time I saw them was about two years ago in England. We went to an e-learning expo, and we were in the same room as people selling these voting devices, and they have a complete trivia quiz already built into the system.
Right.
So they just handed out the handsets, and we just played Who Wants to Be a Millionaire all day. Quite funny.
Ah, fantastic. The one problem with...
Actually, I'm just looking on that Quizdom thing now and saying it says it integrates with Microsoft PowerPoint, so it's probably the same
PowerPoint
thing.
and ExamView, if you've seen ExamView too. So,
I haven't seen that, no.
ExamView is very powerful.
Yeah, that instantaneous analysis of results is really very powerful in the right hands, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you can ask 10 questions and then get a profile of exactly who got what right and what wrong answers they got instantly, that's a really powerful tool.
Oh, look, I agree. The only problem that we've got with these at the moment is, I don't know whether you guys have found the price button anywhere, but you will fall over when you find the price of them. They are over the top a little bit. The ones that I've got, I know because I've just put one on my credit card, so it's maxed out the credit card quite a bit. But they for a set of 30 to go into a classroom. They're sold out of England, so this is going to be in UK pounds. It was £2,550 for a set of 30 of them. So convert that, and you can see that that's not something that's going to be in every classroom tomorrow.
No, that's for sure.
But again,
have you any idea what the
as I said to you, no, I haven't, Bryn. But this
they only have the 4 buttons, don't they? This is much more complicated.
That's what I was going to say. I wasn't interested in the Promethean because they only have the 4 buttons. I'm more interested in something you can put a short answer in as well. Going back to the whole thing, there's not a lot of point in just multiple choice all the time. It's going to be more powerful if you can actually put a bit of text in there. And so, funny enough, that your timing is impeccable because, as I said, I just got off the phone from Simon in Sydney. And Simon was telling me about a Taiwanese manufacturer, so he's just given me a link for that. So I'll put that up on the notes as well. I know nothing about it, that Simon's only just given it to me. So I've just been to the website and had a bit of a look. So
we'll put all that up. Well, gentlemen, I think we've probably come to the end of this. Otherwise, we might have a file that no one can download because it'll be too big. But I'll just finish off by just asking around the room here. Just an interesting use of interactive whiteboards you've actually seen used in a classroom. Paul, I might throw it to you.
Look, one of the things, I'll just give you a nice simple one that I used with some kids the other day. You can use a palindrome, and I put up on the whiteboard quite a few palindromes. But I said to the kids, there is one word in the English language that when you tip it upside down, it actually spells exactly the same thing. And they were fascinated. They were drawing all sorts of things on the board. And of course, with the interactive whiteboard, you just click it and tilt it upside down straight away. And we were able to find out whether noon spells the right thing, or this or that. And I can't even remember half the words, but they were so engaged. This went on for about 20 minutes. And in the end, they couldn't get it. But the word is swims. If you write swims and you tilt it around, it's exactly the same, provided you do your M's and W's the same way. And what a lesson.
A couple of things I've seen that were impressive. One very simple one was simply playing a QuickTime movie of a caterpillar, whatever it is, chrysalis turning into whatever they turn into, butterfly, and just stopping the movie at certain points, writing notes on the picture, and then capturing the screen.
Yeah, I like that.
Simple.
I saw that functionality in the smartboard the other day, that when you have the movie playing in the smart video player and you pick up the pen, the movie automatically pauses. You can make notes on the video, and as soon as you put the pen back, the video starts playing again, the notes go away. I loved it.
Yeah. And the other one was the kids come into the room, and each of them has a picture of their head on the board, and they just drag their head into a box, and that's the attendance register done.
You've stolen my thunder. I was going to use that as my example, Bryn. I went to a school in southwestern Sydney, and same thing. The teacher doesn't set the board up, the board's all installed, but the teacher doesn't go in and turn it on and get it all up and running every morning. A couple of kids take that responsibility, and they open up a Smart Notebook file. It's got a line down the middle. It's got absent and present, and all the names of all the kids are over on the left-hand side. And as each kid comes into the room, they walk up to the board, tap it with their finger, and drag their name onto the present side of the board. And I just thought that was a really nice little exercise just to mark the attendance for the day.
And I think that's key to a lot of the use of a whiteboard, and why it needs to be permanently installed is you have a kind of rhythm to the day, and you can have different things on the whiteboard at different times of day. So you can have, that kind of thing in the morning, the last 15 minutes of the afternoon, you can have a fun game, a group game or something thrown up there. So you can very quickly change the mood and change the feeling of the classroom.
Well, I'd like to thank Bryn and Paul for those words of wisdom. I really enjoyed chatting with you guys. I actually met Bryn a couple of years ago. I was in Perth for a couple of conferences, and we managed to connect and go down to Fremantle and have a couple of beers by the dock. So it's a nice little community when you can actually meet some of these people that you only have ever known online. I've not met Paul, but one day, mate, when I come to Hong Kong, we'll make sure we catch up and share a beer there too as well. All the links for today's show, of course, will be, as usual, on www.virtualstaffroom.net, and you can go over there and you can download or you can access all the files that we've talked about, look at all the websites, and bring yourself up to speed on some of the things we mentioned. As usual, your comments are extremely welcome. Someone wrote to me today and with a nice little comment about the virtual staff room, and I wrote back and said, once these podcasts leave my machine and go out onto the internet, I really don't know who's taking them, who's listening to them, or where they end up. So it's kind of nice occasionally when I log onto the website and there's a comment there. It just makes it all feel a little bit worthwhile. So please don't be shy. We'd love to hear from people. Our next episode, if you know anyone who teaches geography, you might want to tell them to tune into the next episode, which will be due out in about a week. I speak to an amazing teacher from Belgium called Luc Zwartjes, and Luc is doing some incredible things with geographic information systems and global positioning systems. If you have at all a passing interest in technology in the classroom, and specifically in geography, you don't want to miss that one. It's a beauty. That's about it for this week. Until next time, I'm Chris Betcher, and you've been listening to the Virtual Staff Room.